Good day and welcome back to the Pin Podcast. We're on episode number 37. At the Pin Podcast, we talk about modern topics with a vintage flair. I'm your host, Pinup Miami, and if it's your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. I hope that you stay. And if you're a returning listener, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for listening, for your texts, for your questions, for our guests. I appreciate it so much more than you could think. If you're not following us on Instagram, the handle is a Pinned Podcast Official, or mine is Pinup Miami. And you could also send us a text to 1-833-4A-PINUP. Today's episode, I just want to make one announcement. The pinned calendar applications are still open. So if you're willing to come to South Florida and become a model, a pinup for a day, and be part of the pin calendar, it's my baby project that I work in all year. This year, I'll be making all the outfits. You don't need any experience. Hair and makeup will be done. There's a photographer. So just apply at thepincalendar.com. And I look forward to your application. Today, we're going to take it back to like glamour Halloween times. I even brought out, if you're watching us on YouTube, I brought out my decor from my room. It says Glamour Ghoul because we have a Glamour Ghoul in the house. She's a YouTuber, a plus size pinup model, a vintage Glamour Ghoul. Her name is Midge Munster. How are you?
Hey, I am great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I even was tempted to put on green lights for you.
Go full out. Yes, I love it.
How did you get the name?
I wanted to put together kind of a name that just explained who I was. And I've always been a big fan of the show The Munsters and Marilyn Munster's character, who was kind of pretty on the outside, but spooky on the inside. And I feel like that was really who I am as a person. And Midge came from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel because she's a funny woman and I'm a funny woman. And I kind of smushed two things together that I felt like just told the story of what it is I do here.
Are you secretly a stand-up comic?
I actually used to do a lot of comedy and improv. I don't so much anymore since I've become a working stiff, but I do really enjoy doing comedy. Yeah.
Hey, you never know. You could go back to it.
Hopefully. I would love to. That'd be so fun.
They should have a cameo in Marvelous Miss Maisel. You come out.
Oh, I would klutz. That'd be that'd be amazing.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. You started, your YouTube really went off last year.
Yeah, it took off out of nowhere. And thank you if you're one of my amazing people watching this or listening to this. So I had been on YouTube for probably 3.5 years or more, doing vintage stuff, hair and thrifting and that kind of thing. And I think I was really trying to fit a mold of, kind of these other really elegant, fun, like cute, sweet pinups, which are amazing people, but it's also just not who I am. And I think I had an idea of what a pinup was, and I was really trying to be that person. And then actually during quarantine, there was this trend that went around that was called Quarantine-a-ween in March. It was like the halfway to Halloween mark. And a bunch of people on Instagram were, dressing up and putting up their Halloween decorations just for something to make them happy while they were in lockdown. And of course, I hopped on that train faster than I have ever jumped on anything in my life. And I made a Halloween video for my YouTube channel in March, and people really liked it. And I had so much fun. I had more fun making that video than I had had in 3 years doing YouTube. And so I kind of took a step back and reevaluated and was like, you know what? Maybe I need to be being true to myself and making the content I want to make. And so I started doing like Halloween decor hunting videos and things like that all through the summer. And it blew up overnight. I say blew up. I think I've got like 7,000 people, but when I started with 300 and went to like 7K
you felt
in
the
2
difference.
months. Yeah, it was over a couple of months and I was like, okay, sweet. So I feel like I found my niche now, and I love it. I love it so much.
And the best part is that you're yourself.
Yeah, I am. I'm just being my truest me, which is all we can do, right?
Yeah. Have you ever had like, what has been your favorite Halloween costume that you've done?
Oh man. I really loved, Oh, dang. I've had so many. I mean, man, probably, I mean, from when I was like a kid, I used to dress up as Jessie from Toy Story, which I really love.
Oh,
And I am a bottle redhead, but any like redheaded character I like, when as Fiona from Shrek, I wanted to be a redhead so bad when I was a kid.
and look at you now.
Really manifested later in my life. But yeah, in the last few years, my husband and I went as Sweeney Todd a couple years, like Sweeney Todd and
Oh.
Mrs. Lovett a couple years after we started dating. And I made those costumes. That was really, really fun. I liked that one.
Oh, that's amazing. I love I do the same thing. Well, now that I have yellow hair, I always style my hair like characters with my hair color. Like when I go to Dapper Day, I'll do like a Tinkerbell inspired just
Nice.
cuz.
Yeah, well, because you have the best hair on the internet, by the way.
Oh, why thank you.
I probably started following you like 2.5 years ago or so. And I remember the first picture I saw of you and I was like, the hair, mama, the hair. Oh, it's like a beacon calling out to all of us.
During quarantine, I've really let my in-between roots go in through, but people know. I'm not a natural
That
yellow.
doesn't grow out of your head like that? No.
No, but that's why I started doing workshops about 3 years ago. Just teaching hands-on. I don't do professional hair and makeup, but I love teaching people how to do it in real life.
Yeah.
So that's
well, you clearly know what you're doing. The proof's in the pudding, or in the victory roll, I should say.
A little side hustle here. So you mentioned the vintage community, that they're I've noticed a change. I've been in pinup for a long time. I've noticed a change that everything is going a little more glam. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Definitely. Yeah, people are very much trending more. Well, two things, kind of that old Hollywood glamour, and then like the kind of Jane Austen-y cottage core vintage, like the more historic Regency vintage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think when I got started, and I'm sure when you got started, it was a lot more kitschy and rockabilly. Yeah.
That's what I love. And I got started because I love pinstriping and like rock and swing dancing, jiving. But yeah, I noticed such a shift, and then I don't understand it. I mean, I understand it because glamour is timeless, and we both could dress up glam. I know.
Yes, we can do it. We can do it, Ma.
But there's like a divide in some circles that people, you only could be one way or you could be this way. And I feel like you could be both.
Yeah, the vintage community can be it's very strange because it's in some ways so inclusive. And I mean, I think that's, and I'm maybe speaking out of turn here for both of us, but I mean, that's kind of why I came here, is because my body doesn't look like other people's, and I felt welcomed by this style and the people, and I've never felt like I had to be anything else here. But then there are a lot of purists, I think, about what
That's the word.
Yeah, what the word pinup means, what the word vintage means. Yeah, there's definitely some people who, like, if you didn't actually buy it from a 1950s warehouse, then you're not vintage.
Yes, I've seen that. I've had girls that come to my meetup, before quarantine, they'll be like, I can't go because I don't have a vintage dress. I'm like, girl, there's people that come in jeans and a t-shirt rocking it just because they love they have the same passion. You don't need to be
yeah, and I think there's definitely a kind of a thought that you have to spend a lot of money and like be look perfect all the time and like that. I don't know. I've never felt that pressure. I think it comes kind of as you go. I started very basic. I had like address and like some scarves that I wrapped in my hair, and I was like, I'm a pinup now.
There you go. That's all you need. And that little bit of confidence is a great start.
It's the attitude.
I think it's just people, when you first start, it's intimidating. I feel like it's just grown a little more now. And it's just intimidating. And I just think people just need to relax and just start off with a scarf and a skirt, and that's it.
Put on some red lipstick or whatever Coco Chanel said.
And I agree with what you said about Inclusivity. Oh my God, I can't say the word.
It's been a long week. Inclusivity.
Yes.
That.
That's another reason why I got into the pinup communities, because the skirts were very flattering, and that's why I started sewing, because I couldn't go to the thrift store and get true vintage, so I just started making my own stuff. But you make stuff?
I do. I sew. I'm a novice seamstress. I used to be very good. I worked in a costume shop. My background is in theater, and I worked in a costume shop for several years, and it was like some of the best years of my life. Honestly, I loved that.
What kind of costumes?
Just for plays and stuff. So historical, made a lot of like really cool, like Regency garments and Victorian and Georgian and all kinds of cool stuff.
Wow.
And I really enjoyed that, sometimes more than acting, which was like my passion, but I really found a love for sewing doing that. But then I kind of fell out of it when I graduated college, and, I've just this is one of my goals for this year is to get back into it. And I've started sewing again. I do love it so much.
Yeah. And you can match, you can do more costumes and match all your videos, and it's just fun. That's what I love.
A new outfit for every theme.
Yeah. That's what I do. I'm actually now trying to figure out how to either sell my stuff, but then you love them because you made them.
Yeah.
Or how to store them, because, during quarantine, my boyfriend moved in, and I had to give him one of my closets.
Yep.
So I'm working on that.
My husband learned his lesson. He doesn't have a closet anymore.
That's what I have to do. I gotta tell Tim.
He's got a couple really nice dressers.
I'll give him all my dressers. I don't really use my dressers. Just for I just have a drawer of hair flowers. I'll just hang them up. I've seen girls hang them up really cute on.
I have them on like ribbons. Yeah, that's the way. That's
adorable. So let's see. Have you had any like body shaming when you started your YouTube, or the comments that good?
Surprisingly not. And I don't know if I'm just not big enough yet for the. Well, I'm plenty big. Let's be clear, but I'm not at that level yet where people are coming after me. But I've never really, in the vintage community, I've never really experienced anyone specifically coming at me about my weight. But I think too that, part of that is just being comfortable with it at this point. Like I think I got called fat more when I was thin because I was insecure about my body than I do now, because I'm fine with it. And it's like, what are you going to say?
That's so interesting. I never heard it like plain out like that.
Yeah. I mean, like when I was, maybe 165 pounds, I think I had more people make comments about my weight then, just because I think I was showing that I was afraid of being called fat. And now I'm like, I know I'm fat. You don't have to tell me. Like,
and your family's supportive.
Yeah. I mean, I think we, just the time we grew up into, it was a time that was very, first of all, for female identifying people in general, it has always been an issue, that we're made to feel like we have to be thin.
Well, yeah, that's why I ask you about family, because growing up in my family, I've always been the big girl.
Yeah.
And in my family, it was always seen terrible. To this day, it's seen as terrible. One time, sorry, I'm digressing from your answer.
No.
But one time I made dresses for a fashion show, and I invited my parents. They didn't want to go. Then they finally came. And at the end of the show, my dad, he said it in Spanish because they only speak Spanish, but he goes, "Oh, I thought this was a fashion show for fat women." I was like, is that all you think about? It's like, I have big women. I had all sizes.
Girls and said, "You can leave." Excuse you.
I was like, I'm not inviting him ever again.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, I wouldn't say supportive is the word. I think my mother struggled with her weight her whole life, and she was worried that I would go through the same thing she went through. I think it really came from a place of love, but she did talk a lot about weight, not even necessarily my weight, but just weight a lot in general. And I actually wasn't a big child. I was very thin. I was a dancer. I was, I was always big, like tall and big boned, but I wasn't ever heavy until later, and puberty. And I think I probably started yo-yo dieting when I was like 11, and just out of that seed in my head that had been planted that said like, you need to not let yourself be fat. And and then I just spent years and years being less happy than I could have been. And it makes me really sad now when I look back at pictures of myself from that time. And I was like, I wasn't big. I wasn't big
in your mind.
But like, I was so obsessed with the fact that I thought I was huge. And I spent so much time thinking like fat was the worst thing you could be. And then college happened, and I've got some medical stuff and what have you. And I gained like 65 pounds in a year. And I really like thought my life was over for lack of a better word. And but then it happened and nothing happened. Like nothing changed, my friends still loved me. My family still loved me. My husband and now husband, but boyfriend at the time still loved me. Like I was still booking gigs. I was still me. I was just taking up more space. And I think in a weird way, gaining all that weight was the best thing that ever happened to me because it like freed me from that mindset. And then suddenly I wasn't afraid to take up space anymore, and now at my heaviest, I'm happier now than I have ever been. I really think that becoming fat kind of freed me from the prison of diet culture and thinking that I had to be something.
You found your confidence.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so happy now that I can I used to hate looking at myself in pictures, and I'm like, why? Like now I see myself, I'm like, damn girl, you cute. Like
we need to make a mirror that has you in the reflection so that you could just hype up all the girls like, hey,
damn girl, you're cute. Like, yeah. Yes.
That would be cool. But it's amazing to hear that it's like most people would think it's all a mental game. Most people would think that when you're skinny, you'd be your happiest because you're skinny, but it's I love hearing that story because it's not about the weight. It was more about finding your confidence.
Yeah.
And it just so happens to be the opposite of what you thought about growing up.
No, absolutely. And I think like a lot of times, like I said, we make ourselves prisoners in our own mind, thinking that we can only be this one thing and that's the only way people will accept us. And it's just not the case. Like if you own who you are at any weight, anything, any gender, race, like anything, you own who you are and bring it confidently, people respond to that. And I don't know. It's exhausting. It's not worth the energy to try to pretend to be something you're not.
Now look at you glowing, smiling. Every time you have your videos, you're always hyped up. Like you can feel that confidence through the screen. That's what I love.
Yeah. I'm happy. I'm very happy now. I think it's, everybody listening, stop apologizing for taking up space in this world in any way, whether it's physically, mentally, women who are loud, be loud, like just stop apologizing. Cause at the end of the day, like I said, I spent so much time being less happy than I could have been. And why? Like, don't do that to yourself. Be happy now.
Well said. Ditto.
Cosign. Yes.
Cosign it. Pinup Miami right there.
Miami approved.
So Midge, do you have any future projects that you're working on that you could, or any like video ideas you could sneak peek in here?
Oh yes, I'm actually working on a very exciting collaboration right now. It's been many months in the making, and it's speaking of sewing, actually. So like I said, one of my goals for myself this year was to get back into sewing, and one of the things I wanted to do was to kind of challenge myself to recreate outfits from some of my favorite television shows on a plus size body. And one of those shows that I really, really love is called Pushing Daisies.
My gosh, I love that show. People think I'm crazy when I say that show, that it's like musical, and it had the girl from Wicked that was Glenn. Like,
it was the best show. It was only on for like 2 seasons. I've owned it on DVD since I was like 12. I love that show. Got canceled after a couple seasons. Didn't get its due at all. If you don't know the show, it's about it's just the most aesthetic. I mean, you can attest to this. Like, it's the most aesthetic show ever. It's beautifully shot, and it's about a pie maker who has the ability to touch people who are dead and bring them back to life. But he can only bring them back to life for a minute, and then he has to touch them again. So they go back to being dead, or somebody else has to take their place. And then he can never touch them again if they're like alive. And so he ends up like touching his childhood sweetheart who is found dead, and he can't bring himself to put her back. So they can never touch again. And he's just living his life with his dead childhood sweetheart. And it's adorable. And, the woman, his sweetheart, her name is Charlotte Charles, or Chuck, and all of her fashion is very vintagey, very vintagey. I blame that show for my first like whisperings of the vintage, like, oh my God, what is this? The colors and the hair and the designs, and oh my gosh. And so I really wanted to recreate some of her outfits, some of Chuck's outfits. And I had posted something about this on Instagram, and another lovely plus size pinup, Jen at A Vintage Vanity, who is also has a pretty huge presence on YouTube, actually. She reached out to me and was like, oh my God, I loved that show. Can we work on this together? So Jen and I are doing a Pushing Daisies collaboration right now that'll come out probably about a week after you guys are listening to this. So keep an eye on that, because we're doing vintage takes on some of the different outfits from that show, and it's going to be really, really fun.
Ooh, make sure you guys follow her at Midge Munster on YouTube.
Yay.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see that.
So excited. I'm also extremely intimidated because Jen is like a pro seamstress. And I'm like just getting back in the saddle, and I was like, yeah, I'll make a whole dress. That seems like a great idea.
I believe in you. You could do it, especially since you have the motivation with the show and the collaboration. You're gonna pull through and make something incredible.
I think it's gonna be really fun. It's going well so far, so we'll see.
All right, so I have a couple questions that were sent to me on Instagram.
Ooh.
What is one thing you wish you had known before you started YouTube?
I wish someone had told me to get my rear in gear and just do it. Honestly. And that's my advice. Anytime somebody asks me like what my advice is for starting a YouTube channel, do it. You're always going to have things you wish were better. You're going to wish you had a better camera, wish you had better sound equipment, better lights, better editing software. It never stops. And even now with the upgrades I've made in the last 2 years, I still have things I wish I was better at. I mean, I'm completely self-taught. I didn't know how to edit a video when I started doing YouTube, but you're never going to get any better unless you start doing it. And, it's like, yeah, sure. I watch things I made 3 years ago and I cringe. But I wouldn't trade it, like you learn and you grow and you find who you are along the way. And I think, I just wish someone would have been like, just do it. Just if you want to do it, because you could have been doing it all this time and having fun. And why didn't you do it? That's the theme of the podcast. You could have been happier all this time. Just do what you want to do. Live your dreams.
That's how I was with my podcast. I started with just my cell phone.
Yeah. How BA is this, by the way? Like, you're rocking it. I love that you have a podcast. This is something I wish I had the skills for. This is so cool.
This is when I say, just do it. The spooky podcast. Oh my God. Colorful podcast with Midge.
I do it's actually, I'm all the guests. I just do different voices. Yeah. And today we're talking to a British ghost. I'm like, hello, mate.
There you go. You could do stories. My boyfriend loves listening to this podcast. I forgot the podcast name, that it's literally just storytelling. And it could be different voices. There you go.
That's true.
Next, I have here your favorite horror movie. I'm sure this is a hard one.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on subgenre within horror.
Let's go for a campy horror. That's
campy horror. Yeah. I mean, I love a slasher film. I love I love the original Halloween. I love Scream. Yeah, I love Evil Dead if you want something really campy. As far as classics, Bride of Frankenstein, hands down. Just like good OG base horror classic.
I love Hellraiser.
Oh, yes.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
So fun fact, my uncle, Mark Patton, is Jesse in the second Nightmare on Elm Street. The main character in that movie. So I like grew up on that franchise because my family is of the world of Elm Street.
That's so. I was about to say, people don't know this about me because they see like all my colorful pinup stuff, but my back room has a 50s diner, but the rest of it is all my horror memorabilia. So I have like I have a picture of Robert Englund with like the from a horror convention. That's why I have that, because somebody gifted it to me.
Oh my gosh.
That's like the fun. And then I have mannequins and skeletons. It's just weird, but it's cute.
Yeah. We're like, you're one of us. You're coated in sugar, but you cut it open and it's just pure gore.
Yes. Yeah. What are your top 3 shopping stores for vintage / repro?
Ooh, okay. Well, locally, I have a shop in town called Retro Vixen. I'm going to give them a shout out because you can also shop with them online. And they're my ladies. They're my ride or die. I bought my first vintage style dress at their store when I was in high school and never looked back. And they're very size inclusive, which I've always appreciated. As far as brands, like shopping online, Vixen by Micheline Pitt, who I'm wearing today. One of my all-time favorites, and she does lots of ooky spooky things as well, which obviously.
Yeah, her prints are awesome.
Oh, they're so good, and the sizing is just so tasty. She also has a sister company called La Femme en Noir. I shop all their stuff as well. And then probably like Hell Bunny, I guess. They have really good, just anything size inclusive. Hell Bunny, Retrolicious, Sourpuss. Like if you want fun, printed, rockabilly, good time dresses, those are the places to go.
I like Sourpuss. I've never tried Vixen, vintage Vixen.
Mama, you would look so good in everything they do. You got to do it.
I have to try. I haven't tried that one.
What is Vixen, if you're listening, please sponsor me. I'm your biggest fan. I tell everyone.
I should ask them to be a guest, and then I'll drop your name. Hey.
Yeah. Like Midge will not shut up about you.
What is your favorite makeup palette?
Ooh. Oh, here we go. You ready?
It's right there. It's at a reach.
So I just got this. I did a YouTube video with it, actually. This is the Melt Cosmetics Recently Deceased Beetlejuice palette.
Ooh, I like their eyeshadows.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that one.
Yeah, it's all just like spooky greens and purples, and I love it. I was never a big eyeshadow girl. And just like this last year, I think because of the masks, because lipstick's always been my go-to. And so I think like with wearing a mask, I was like, oh, I gotta do something up here to make it pop. And so I bought a whole bunch of eyeshadow, and now that's a thing I do, apparently.
Do you have any tips for thrifting and being plus size?
Ooh, it's rough. I mean, there's just no way around that. And I'm sure you know too. Like it's just rough.
I take a big measure.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think be on the lookout for, well, I guess, first of all, learn to sew. Please do it. Just do it. Learn to, even if it's just to tailor and mend, like learn basics of sewing, and then be on the lookout for things that are really big that you can like make look cool. Like there's a lot of kind of like 80s does 40s, 80s does 50s kind of stuff out there, which it's more like sack shaped than the 50s and 40s, but you can taper like the waists and things very easily and make some really cute vintage style dresses out of things that are kind of ugly.
My tip, I always tell like girls to look at the mother of the bride, like on Poshmark or eBay. And I've gotten incredible things for like the Art Deco weekend. And
yeah, especially if you do like what you do, like if you are, doing a lot of pinup contests and things. Yeah, that's a great way to find gowns for stuff.
I love them. So I'm over the contest. I just host them now.
You've got the sweet gig. You just get to stand there and look beautiful and talk.
But I will one day, maybe one day. All my friends want me to try to go to Viva Las Vegas. We'll see.
Girl, I'm trying to go this year. They moved it to my birthday weekend, and I'm like, well,
party in Midge.
Now I have to go.
They should have a cocktail night, and then you do like stand up.
Oh my God.
We'll do our own.
I'm not really gonna pay to watch that.
I'm sure. We'll find.
You can host.
I'll host and I'll bring you on stage.
And then you can like boo me off when it's really rusty.
No, I'll just boo everyone out. Hi. Do you have any questions for me?
For you? Yeah, all of them.
Oh.
I mean, I guess just I this is our first time interacting like IRL, which is crazy because I feel like I've been aware of you for so long. But like, well, first of all, what is the pinup scene like in Miami? I feel like you guys have a great like vintage scene. I live in a Midwestern state. I am one of like 8 vintage women in this whole damn city.
Well, the scene down here is, well, the pinup scenes more specifically is not that big.
Really?
No, I would like to think that I helped bring it out because I've had Pin South Florida, which is a meetup group,
right.
Open to anyone and everyone. I started it. It will be 4 years this year. And it's really brought different people that love cars, women or the style, but they never really had a place to go. So I just created events and they would come. And then it grew into people being like, okay, I'm ready. When's the next one? Let's dress up. And then last year before the pandemic, one of my dream events to always do was like a rockabilly prom, but I wanted it to be like in the evening, very glam, because we never got to wear gowns,
Yeah.
So the Gold Coast Museum, which is a historical train museum down souther than me by the zoo, if you're from South Florida, they have like amazing vintage trains, and they reached out to me to do an event, and I said, we're doing this prom I've always wanted to do.
Yes.
So
we used to have a rockabilly prom in Kansas City like years and years and years ago. But it was hosted by one of the radio stations in town, but it's been probably 5 years or more since they did those, and it's
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just like putting on events and bringing people together, and when they see me dressed up, it all started because people would see me dressed up and they were like, oh, I wish I could dress like you. And I'm like, you could dress however you could dress however you like anytime.
You can. Just do it. Stop being less happy than you could be.
Exactly. But I gave people that push, and I'm like, when you need an excuse, well, every Sunday you could find me here and we're doing a brunch. And so the consistent thing was a brunch every Sunday because of the pandemic was the first time I didn't have one. But
yeah,
it was always
like,
every
remember
Sunday.
when we could do things?
Yeah, because I was about to say, yeah, every Sunday. I'm like, no, I stopped.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's been a great experience, and I've met so many women. Like I said earlier, like people come in jeans and a t-shirt. It's just about loving the community. I really think I've built a community here that is very, that word I can't say, inclusive.
Inclusive, yes. No, absolutely. And that's, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's what that's why I do YouTube. That's what it's all about, is finding your people, finding your community. Like, I'm sure you're the same way. I don't do this because I want like attention or applause or anything. I wanted to find other people who love what I love and have conversations about it. And here we are having a conversation about it. I don't think I have any bigger regrets in my life. Like, all those things like right before the pandemic that you were like, next year. And now you're like, why didn't I do that? The Nashville Boogie, I think it was 2019.
That was in my head.
The one, it was like the Ronettes and B-52. Like it was all the good. And I wanted to go so bad. And I was like, like I just started a new job, blah, blah, blah. Like I'll go next year. And
look at you now.
Like never again will I say, like,
no regrets.
I'll catch it next time. Yeah, never again. we're going all out from here on out as soon as we can do things.
And I love it. So let everyone know how they can reach you. I know your YouTube, you got Midge Munster, your Instagram, Midge Munster. You make it really easy.
Yes, everything's Midge Munster. You can find me Instagram, YouTube. What else? And if I am going to do a shameless plug. I also run a size inclusive vintage boutique online. It's called the Beehive KC. So if you want to buy clothes like I wear, that is where you can find them at thebeehivekc.com. And we're on Instagram also at the Beehive KC Mo.
I thank you so much for being on my podcast. It means so much to me. You've been such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun. It's good to talk about things again. It's been so long since I've been able to talk about vintage or pinup or anything. This is great.
Well, anytime you have any topic you just want to vent, just reach out to me. Episode.
I love it.
The next week, I have a designer. It's Alexis from Ains and Elk Style House. She will be joining in, and your face opens.
I love that brand. Their clothes are so beautiful.
Well, she will be in, and next week she's size inclusive. She does like custom dresses, uses amazing fabrics, and I love her sweaters.
Yes, they did a really cute dress last year that had like beetles all over it, and I wanted it really bad.
I modeled for her clothes on Viva East 2 years ago. I already got my ears messed up. But yes, she is going to be on the show next week. So make sure you tune in next Wednesday. Make sure to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere. And if you could rate the podcast, it's a free way to help me out. And I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you all. And hear you all next week. You'll listen to us next week. Bye.